They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life, the moment when everything you've dreamed about finally comes true. But what happens when that dream shatters in an instant? What happens when the person standing at the altar, the one you're about to promise forever to, has been lying to you all along? This is the story of Sarah Mitchell, a woman who discovered the unthinkable just minutes before saying, "I do," and what she did next left 300 wedding guests completely speechless. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. It was supposed to be perfect. September 23, 2023. The Grand Oak Estate in Napa Valley, California. Sarah had spent 18 months planning every single detail. The ivory roses, the string quartet, the hand-calligraphed invitations. She'd imagined this day since she was 7 years old, playing bride with her grandmother's lace curtains. Now, at 32, she was finally living it. Her fiancé, Michael Harrison, was everything she thought she wanted. Successful real estate developer, charming smile, the kind of guy who remembered to bring her coffee exactly how she liked it. They'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 1. Everyone said they were the perfect couple. But perfect is a dangerous word, because sometimes perfect is just a mask hiding something rotten underneath. Sarah was about to learn that lesson in the most devastating way possible. The morning of the wedding started like any other bride's dream. Sarah woke up at 6 a.m. in the bridal suite, surrounded by her 4 bridesmaids. Her best friend since college, Jennifer, was already popping champagne. Her sister, Rebecca, was steaming the dress one last time. The hair and makeup team arrived at 7. Everything was running like clockwork. Sarah remembered feeling calm, almost eerily calm. She'd been so stressed for months, but that morning, she felt at peace. She trusted Michael completely. She had no reason not to. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. By noon, Sarah was in her dress. It was a custom Vera Wang, strapless with delicate lace appliques running down the bodice. It had cost $18,000, but it was worth every penny. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like the bride from the magazines, the one she'd been dreaming about being. Her mother started crying when she walked into the room. Even the photographer got emotional. Everything felt right. Everything felt exactly as it should be. But life has a cruel way of timing its worst moments. At 2:30 p.m., 90 minutes before the ceremony, Sarah's phone buzzed. She almost didn't check it. Brides aren't supposed to be on their phones on their wedding day, right? But something made her look. It was a text from an unknown number. No caller ID. Just a message that read, "I'm so sorry to do this to you today, but you deserve to know the truth before you marry him. Check the photos I'm sending." Sarah's heart started pounding. Her hands trembled as she opened the attached images. The first photo showed Michael. Her Michael. In what looked like a hotel room. He was shirtless, laughing, holding a glass of whiskey. But he wasn't alone. The second photo made Sarah's stomach drop. Michael was kissing another woman. A blonde woman Sarah had never seen before. The kiss wasn't friendly. It wasn't a peck on the cheek. It was passionate, intimate, the kind of kiss you share with someone you know well. The third photo was even worse. Michael and this woman were in bed together, clearly naked under the sheets, his arm wrapped around her. The timestamp on the photo was from 2 nights ago, Thursday night. The night of his bachelor party. The night he told Sarah he was just having drinks with his groomsmen at a local bar. The night he texted her at 11 p.m. saying he loved her and couldn't wait to marry her. Sarah felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. Her vision blurred. She couldn't breathe. Jennifer noticed immediately and rushed over, asking what was wrong. Sarah couldn't speak. She just handed her the phone. Jennifer's face went pale as she scrolled through the photos. Within seconds, all 4 bridesmaids were huddled around, staring at the screen in horror. Rebecca, Sarah's sister, was the first to speak. Her voice was shaking with rage. "Who sent this? Is this real? This has to be fake. Someone's trying to sabotage the wedding." But deep down, they all knew. Those photos were real. The hotel room was real. The woman was real. Michael's betrayal was devastatingly, undeniably real. Sarah's mind was racing. She thought about all the late nights Michael had worked, All the business trips. All the times he'd been glued to his phone, quickly turning the screen away when she walked into the room. She'd never questioned it. She'd trusted him. She'd believed every word he said. Now, sitting in her wedding dress 90 minutes before the ceremony, she realized how blind she'd been. Jennifer grabbed Sarah's shoulders. "You don't have to go through with this. We can cancel everything right now. No one would blame you." But Sarah shook her head. Something was shifting inside her. The shock was giving way to something else. Something colder. Something stronger. "I'm not canceling," Sarah said quietly. Her voice was steady now, controlled. "Everyone's already here. The food's been paid for. The flowers are arranged. We're doing this wedding." The bridesmaids looked at each other confused. Rebecca spoke up. "Sarah, you can't marry him. Not after this. You can't just pretend nothing happened." Sarah looked at her sister with eyes that had changed in the last 5 minutes. They were harder now, determined. "I'm not pretending anything happened," she said. "And I'm definitely not marrying him, but I am going to that altar. Because Michael needs to answer for what he's done. And he's going to do it in front of everyone who came here today." The next hour was a blur. Sarah had her bridesmaids print out the photos on the hotel's business center printer. She put them in a simple white folder. She reapplied her lipstick, fixed her hair, and practiced her breathing. She looked at herself in the mirror one more time. The girl staring back wasn't the naive bride from an hour ago. She was someone else now. Someone who'd been forced to grow up in the cruelest way possible. Downstairs, 300 guests were taking their seats. Michael was at the altar, looking confident and handsome in his custom navy suit. His groomsmen stood beside him, laughing and joking. He had no idea what was coming. The music started. The string quartet began playing Pachelbel's Canon in D. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle one by one. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The doors opened, and Sarah appeared with her father. The guests stood. Cameras flashed. Michael's face lit up when he saw her. He looked genuinely happy, genuinely excited. For a split second, Sarah almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then she remembered the photos. She remembered the lies. She remembered every time he'd looked her in the eye and promised her forever while he was sleeping with someone else. Sarah walked down that aisle with her head high. Her father, completely unaware of what was happening, beamed with pride. When they reached the altar, he kissed Sarah's cheek and placed her hand in Michael's. Michael squeezed it gently, smiling at her with so much love in his eyes. Or was it love? Sarah couldn't tell anymore. Maybe it never was. The officiant, Reverend Thompson, began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell and Michael James Harrison in holy matrimony." Sarah let him speak. She let him go through the opening remarks. She wanted Michael to feel safe. She wanted him to think everything was fine. Then, just as Reverend Thompson was about to start the vows, Sarah raised her hand. "I'm sorry, Reverend Thompson," she said clearly. Her voice carried across the silent chapel. "Before we continue, there's something I need to address." Michael's smile faltered slightly. Confusion flickered across his face. The guests shifted in their seats. Reverend Thompson looked startled but nodded. "Of course, Sarah. What is it?" Sarah turned to face the crowd. 300 faces stared back at her. Friends, family, colleagues, distant relatives who traveled across the country. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Her voice was calm and steady. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," Sarah began. "It means the world to me that you all came to celebrate what I thought was going to be the beginning of my life with Michael. I spent 18 months planning this wedding. I spent 4 years building a relationship with a man I thought I knew. I spent countless hours dreaming about our future together, about the family we'd create, about growing old together." She paused, and the silence in the room was deafening. Michael reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "But about 90 minutes ago, I received some photos that changed everything." The color drained from Michael's face. His expression shifted from confusion to panic in an instant. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" he whispered urgently. "Can we discuss this privately?" But Sarah ignored him. She pulled out the folder and opened it. "These photos were sent to me by someone I don't know. Someone who clearly knew something I didn't. Someone who thought I deserved to know the truth before I made the biggest mistake of my life." She held up the first photo so the front rows could see it. A collective gasp rippled through the chapel. Michael in the hotel room, shirtless, smiling. The woman beside him. This was taken 2 nights ago, Sarah continued, her voice getting stronger. At the Hilton downtown. The night of your bachelor party, Michael. The night you told me you were just having drinks with the guys. The night you texted me at 11 p.m. saying you loved me. She held up the second photo. Michael kissing the blonde woman. More gasps. Someone in the back said, "Oh my God!" Michael's best man, Derek, took a step back, distancing himself. "And this," Sarah said, holding up the third photo, "shows exactly how you spent your last night as a single man. Not thinking about me. Not preparing for our future. But in bed with someone else." The chapel erupted. Whispers turned into conversations. People were standing, craning their necks to see. Michael's mother screamed, "This can't be true! Someone's lying!" But Michael's face told a different story. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't defending himself. He just stood there, frozen, his face pale and his hands trembling. "Sarah, please," he finally choked out. "Let me explain. It's not what it looks like. She didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. I was drunk, I wasn't thinking. I love you, I swear I love you." His voice broke on the last word, and tears started streaming down his face. But Sarah felt nothing. No sympathy. No love. Just a cold, hard clarity. "You love me?" Sarah repeated, her voice sharp now. "You love me, but you slept with another woman 48 hours before our wedding? You love me, but you've been lying to my face for God knows how long? Because let's be honest, Michael, this wasn't the first time, was it?" Michael's silence was answer enough. Sarah nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." She turned back to the guests. "I'm not going to stand here and marry a man who doesn't respect me, who doesn't value what we built together, who thinks so little of me that he'd betray me at the last possible moment." Her voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion breaking through. "I deserve better than this, and I refuse to start my marriage with a lie." She turned back to Michael one last time. "I hope she was worth it. I hope those few hours were worth losing everything we had. Because you'll never get another chance with me. This is over." And with that, Sarah pulled off her engagement ring. The 3-carat diamond that Michael had proposed with on a beach in Maui. She looked at it for a moment, remembering how happy she'd been that day, how certain she'd been about their future. Then she placed it firmly in Michael's palm and closed his fingers around it. "Keep it," she said quietly. "Or give it to her. I don't care anymore." The chapel was in complete chaos now. Michael's mother was sobbing. Sarah's father was trying to process what just happened. The bridesmaids were crying, but they were also cheering quietly, supporting Sarah's courage. Some guests were angry, shouting at Michael. Others were filming on their phones. Derek, the best man, grabbed Michael's arm and tried to pull him away, but Michael just stood there, still staring at Sarah in disbelief. "Sarah, please don't do this," he begged one more time. "We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do anything. Please don't throw away 4 years over one mistake." Sarah laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "One mistake? Michael, cheating isn't tripping on the sidewalk. It's not forgetting to pay a bill. You made a choice. You chose to betray me. You chose to risk everything we had for a night with someone else. That's not a mistake. That's a decision. And now I'm making mine." With that, she turned and walked back down the aisle. Not as a bride, but as a woman reclaiming her dignity. Her father rushed to her side, and her bridesmaids followed close behind. The guests parted like the Red Sea, some reaching out to touch her hand or whisper words of support. Sarah didn't look back. Not once. She heard Michael calling her name, his voice breaking, but she kept walking. When she reached the doors, she paused and turned around one final time. The entire chapel was watching her. "Thank you all for coming," she said loudly. "I'm sorry you traveled all this way for a wedding that isn't happening, but I hope you understand why. I hope you do the same thing in my position. I hope you choose yourself over someone who clearly never chose you." And then she was gone, disappearing through the doors and into the afternoon sunlight. Behind her, the chapel remained in stunned silence. Michael collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. His mother was screaming at him, demanding to know if it was true. His father just stood there, shaking his head in disappointment. The reception hall, beautifully decorated with hundreds of ivory roses and twinkling lights, sat empty. The forte cake went uneaten. The band never played. The first dance never happened. But Sarah didn't care about any of that. She was in the bridal suite, surrounded by her sister and her bridesmaids, finally allowing herself to break down. The tears came hard and fast, months of trust and love and dreams dissolving in an instant. Jennifer held her while she sobbed, whispering that she was brave, that she did the right thing, that she was going to be okay. And somewhere deep down, beneath all the pain and betrayal, Sarah knew it was true. If your heart is racing, comment "I'm still watching." Let's see who's truly following till the end. The story spread like wildfire. By that evening, videos of Sarah's speech were all over social media. Strangers from across the country were commenting, praising her courage, sharing their own stories of betrayal. The hashtag, Team Sarah, started trending. News outlets picked up the story. Sarah became an unlikely symbol of strength and self-respect. But she wasn't thinking about any of that. She was just trying to breathe through the pain, trying to figure out who she was without Michael, trying to imagine a future she hadn't planned for. The unknown number that had sent the photos texted her again that night. "I know this was the hardest day of your life, but you deserve to know. I'm sorry I had to be the one to tell you. He doesn't deserve you." Sarah never found out who sent those photos. She had theories. Maybe it was the other woman, feeling guilty. Maybe it was someone who worked at the hotel. Maybe it was one of Michael's friends who couldn't live with the secret. It didn't really matter. Whoever it was, they'd given her the truth. And the truth, no matter how painful, was better than living a lie. Michael tried reaching out dozens of times in the following days. Texts, calls, emails, even showing up at her apartment. Sarah blocked him everywhere. She had nothing left to say to him. Her father and brother made it clear that if he came near her again, there would be consequences. Eventually, he stopped trying. 3 months later, Sarah found out through mutual friends that Michael had moved to Seattle. He'd sold his share in the real estate company and left California entirely. Apparently, the scandal had destroyed his reputation. Clients didn't want to work with him. Friends distanced themselves. His family was still furious. Sarah felt a small sense of vindication, but mostly, she just felt tired. Tired of thinking about him. Tired of replaying the betrayal in her mind. Tired of wondering what she'd missed, what signs she'd ignored. She started therapy. She reconnected with old friends she'd lost touch with during the relationship. She threw herself into her career as a graphic designer. Slowly, painfully, she started rebuilding. 6 months after the wedding that never was, Sarah was having coffee with Jennifer when someone approached their table. It was a woman in her mid-30s, blonde and elegant. Sarah didn't recognize her at first, but then the woman spoke. "Sarah? I'm Amanda. I'm the woman from the photos. I'm the one Michael cheated with." Sarah's heart stopped. She hadn't expected this, hadn't prepared for it. Amanda looked nervous, her hands shaking slightly as she held her coffee cup. "I need to apologize to you. I need you to know that I didn't know he was getting married. He told me he was single. He took off his engagement ring. He lied to me just like he lied to you." Sarah stared at her, processing this information. Amanda continued, her voice thick with emotion. "When I found out about the wedding, I was horrified. I felt sick. I couldn't let you marry him without knowing. So I sent those photos. I'm the one who told you the truth." Sarah's mind was reeling. She'd imagined this woman as a villain, as someone who knowingly destroyed her life. But looking at Amanda now, she saw someone who was also a victim. Someone else Michael had manipulated and deceived. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly. It was all she could manage. Amanda nodded, tears in her eyes. "You deserve so much better than him. We both did." And then she left, disappearing back into the coffee shop crowd. That encounter changed something in Sarah. She realized she'd been carrying so much anger, not just at Michael, but at the phantom woman in the photos. Now, knowing the truth, she felt that anger dissolve. Amanda hadn't been her enemy. She'd been her savior. Without those photos, Sarah would have married Michael. She would have promised forever to a man who didn't deserve it. She would have wasted years of her life before inevitably discovering the truth. Amanda had given her a painful gift, but a gift nonetheless. Sarah went home that day and did something she hadn't done since the wedding. She looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. A real smile. Not forced. Not fake. Just genuine peace. A year after the failed wedding, Sarah's life looked completely different. She'd moved to a new apartment in San Francisco. She'd been promoted to senior designer at her firm. She traveled to Italy with her sister, something she'd always wanted to do but Michael had never been interested in. She'd started painting again, a hobby she'd abandoned during the relationship. She'd even gone on a few dates, though nothing serious. She wasn't looking for serious. She was looking for herself, and slowly, she was finding her again. The version of Sarah that existed before Michael. The version that was confident and independent, and didn't need anyone to complete her. One evening, Sarah was at a gallery opening for a local artist when she ran into Derek, Michael's former best man. She almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, more tired. He approached her cautiously, clearly unsure if she'd want to talk to him. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I knew about the cheating. Not about the wedding night specifically, but I knew he'd been unfaithful before. I should have told you. I should have done something. I'm sorry." Sarah looked at him for a long moment. A year ago, this revelation would have devastated her. Now, it just made her sad. Sad for the time she'd lost. Sad for the lies she'd believed. But also grateful. Grateful that she'd gotten out when she did. "Thank you for telling me now," Sarah said. "I appreciate the honesty, even if it's late." Derek nodded, relief washing over his face. "For what it's worth, what you did at that wedding was the bravest thing I've ever seen. You could have just walked away quietly, but you stood up for yourself. You made him face what he'd done. I have so much respect for you." Sarah smiled. "I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. But I knew if I didn't do it then, I never would. And I couldn't live with myself if I let him get away with it." Derek nodded again. "He lost the best thing that ever happened to him. I hope he knows that." Sarah shrugged. "I don't really care what he knows anymore. I just care about moving forward." As Sarah walked home that night, she thought about the question she'd been asking herself for months. Would she have done anything differently? Would she have preferred not knowing? Would she rather have married Michael and discovered the truth years later, after kids and a mortgage and a life fully intertwined? The answer was always the same: no. As painful as that day had been, as humiliating and heartbreaking and devastating, it had also set her free. It had shown her that she was stronger than she thought, that she could survive something she never imagined surviving, that she could choose herself, even when it was the hardest choice she'd ever had to make. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, Sarah met someone new. His name was Daniel, and he was an architect. They met at a mutual friend's barbecue, bonding over their shared love of terrible horror movies and good coffee. Daniel knew about her past. She told him on their third date, wanting to be upfront about the baggage she carried. He'd listened without judgment, without trying to fix her or convince her that not all men were like Michael. He just held her hand and said, "That must have been incredibly hard. But look at you now. You're amazing." And for the first time in years, Sarah felt seen. Really seen. Not as a victim. Not as a cautionary tale. Just as Sarah. Their relationship grew slowly, carefully. Sarah wasn't in a rush anymore. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Daniel respected her boundaries, her need for space, her occasional moments of doubt. He showed her through actions, not just words, that he was trustworthy, that he was consistent, that he chose her every single day, not just when it was convenient. A year into their relationship, Daniel proposed. It was nothing like Michael's elaborate beach proposal. It was simple, intimate, at Sarah's apartment during a quiet Sunday morning. "I know this might bring up difficult memories," Daniel said, holding a simple platinum band. "And if you're not ready, I understand. But I love you, Sarah. And I want to spend my life proving to you that you made the right choice in trusting me." Sarah looked at the ring, then at Daniel, then at herself. The woman she'd become over the past 3 years. The woman who'd survived betrayal and humiliation and rebuilt herself from the ground up. The woman who knew her worth now. Who wouldn't settle for anything less than she deserved. And she realized something profound. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of marriage. Not of commitment. Not of trusting someone with her heart again. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. She could survive heartbreak. She'd done it once, and if she had to, she could do it again. But more importantly, she trusted herself now. She trusted her ability to recognize red flags, to walk away if needed, to choose herself. Yes, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. But these were different tears. Not tears of devastation, but tears of joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. Daniel slipped the ring on her finger, and they held each other for a long time. When Sarah thought about that day at the Grand Oak Estate, standing at the altar with those photos in her hand, she didn't feel anger anymore. She felt grateful. Grateful to Amanda for having the courage to tell her the truth. Grateful to herself for having the courage to walk away. Grateful for the pain that had taught her what she really deserved. Because without that day, she never would have become the person she was now. She never would have met Daniel. She never would have learned to truly love herself. Sarah and Daniel got married 18 months later. It was a small ceremony, just 40 people, at a vineyard in Sonoma. No elaborate decorations, no 300-person guest list, just the people who mattered most, celebrating two people who'd found each other after learning hard lessons about love and trust and self-worth. As Sarah walked down the aisle toward Daniel, she thought briefly about Michael, wondered where he was, what he was doing. But the thought passed quickly. He was her past, a painful chapter that had closed. Daniel was her present, and hopefully, if they both kept choosing each other every day, her future. The question Sarah gets asked most often, especially from women who've experienced similar betrayals, is always the same. Do you regret confronting him publicly? Do you wish you'd handled it differently? And her answer is always the same. Not for a second. That moment, as hard as it was, gave me my power back. He took so much from me through his lies. My trust, my time, my dreams for our future. But I refused to let him take my dignity too. I refused to stand there and pretend everything was fine. I refused to protect his reputation at the cost of my self-respect. And every day since then, I've been proud of the woman who stood up at that altar and chose herself. Sarah's story spread far beyond that chapel in Napa Valley. It became a rallying cry for people everywhere who'd been betrayed, who'd been lied to, who'd been made to feel like their pain didn't matter. Thousands of people reached out to her, sharing their own stories of infidelity and heartbreak. Some had confronted their partners, others had walked away quietly, but all of them found strength in Sarah's courage. She'd shown them that it was possible to survive the unsurvivable. That rock bottom wasn't the end, just the foundation for rebuilding something stronger. That the end of one story could be the beginning of a better one. On her first anniversary with Daniel, Sarah found herself thinking about that unknown number again. The text that had changed everything. She'd saved it in her phone, even though she'd never responded. She read it one more time. I know this was the hardest day of your life, but you deserve to know. I'm sorry I had to be the one to tell you. He doesn't deserve you. Sarah typed out a response, something she'd been thinking about for 3 years. You're right. It was the hardest day of my life, but it was also the day that saved me. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for caring enough about a stranger to give her the truth. I'm happy now. Truly happy. And I wouldn't be here without you. She hit send, not knowing if Amanda still had the same number, not knowing if she'd ever respond. But 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed. I'm so glad you're happy. You always deserved happiness. Congratulations on everything. Sarah smiled and showed the message to Daniel. The woman who sent me those photos, she explained. The one who exposed Michael. Daniel read the message and then pulled Sarah close. Remind me to thank her someday. She gave me the greatest gift. She made sure you were available when I met you. Sarah laughed, a sound that came easily now. I think she knows, Sarah said. I think she knows exactly what she did. As the years passed, Sarah's life continued to unfold in ways she never could have imagined that day at the altar. She and Daniel had 2 children, a girl and a boy. She published a book about her experience titled, The Wedding That Never Was, Finding Strength in Betrayal. It became a bestseller, helping countless people navigate their own heartbreaks. She started speaking at conferences about self-worth and resilience. She became an advocate for honesty in relationships, for trusting your instincts, for choosing yourself when someone else refuses to choose you. But through it all, she never forgot where she came from. never forgot the pain that had shaped her into who she became. Michael, from what Sarah heard through the occasional mutual acquaintance, never fully recovered from that day. His reputation in the real estate world was destroyed. His relationships afterward were short-lived, plagued by his inability to commit or be honest. He'd sent Sarah one final email on the 5-year anniversary of their failed wedding. It was long, rambling, full of apologies and explanations. He talked about being in therapy, about understanding now what he'd thrown away, about becoming a better person. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He said he knew he didn't deserve it. He just wanted her to know that she'd been right about everything. That walking away was the best thing she could have done. That he was sorry for not being the man she deserved. Sarah read the email once, then deleted it. She didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She'd mourned that relationship years ago. She'd processed the betrayal, the anger, the hurt. She'd moved on. Michael was a character in a story about who she used to be, not who she was now. And that's exactly where he belonged. In the past. A cautionary tale about what happens when you take someone's love for granted. When you assume they'll always be there, no matter how badly you treat them. When you prioritize momentary pleasure over lasting commitment. Michael had learned his lesson, but it was too late to matter. If you're watching this and you've experienced betrayal, if someone you loved has broken your trust in ways you never thought possible, I want you to hear this. You will survive. It might not feel like it right now. It might feel like your world is ending, like you'll never be whole again. But you will. Sarah's story isn't unique because she's special or different. It's universal because betrayal is universal. What makes her story powerful is what she chose to do with her pain. She could have stayed silent. She could have gone through with the wedding and pretended everything was fine. She could have spent years in a marriage built on lies, too afraid to leave, too broken to stand up for herself. But she didn't. She chose herself. In the moment when it mattered most, when 300 people were watching, when the pressure to just go along with it was overwhelming, she chose her dignity over comfort. She chose truth over pretense. She chose her future over her past. And that choice, as painful as it was, set her free. So if you're in a situation where you're being lied to, where you're being taken for granted, where you know deep down that something isn't right, I want you to ask yourself one question. What would Sarah do? Would she stay silent? Would she accept less than she deserves? Or would she stand up, speak her truth, and walk away with her head held high? The answer, I think, is clear. Sarah's courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about being terrified and doing it anyway. It was about knowing that the temporary pain of confrontation was better than the permanent pain of living a lie. It was about respecting herself enough to demand respect from others. And that's a lesson we could all stand to learn. Because at the end of the day, the person you need to be able to face in the mirror isn't your partner, or your family, or your friends. It's yourself. And if you can't look at yourself with pride, with self-respect, with the knowledge that you stood up for what was right even when it was hard, then what's the point? Sarah's wedding day didn't end with, "I do." It ended with, "I deserve better." And those 3 words changed her entire life. They gave her permission to walk away from something that looked perfect, but felt wrong. They gave her the strength to start over when starting over seemed impossible. They gave her the future she was always meant to have. So here's my question for you, and I really want you to think about this. If you were in Sarah's position, if you discovered that the person you were about to marry had betrayed you in the worst possible way, what would you do? Would you confront them publicly, or handle it privately? Would you call off the wedding, or go through with it and deal with it later? And more importantly, would you have the courage to choose yourself, even when everyone is watching, even when it's embarrassing and painful and scary? Think about that. Really think about it. Because the truth is, most of us like to believe we'd be strong like Sarah. We'd like to think we'd stand up for ourselves, that we'd never tolerate betrayal or lies. But when you're actually in that moment, when the pressure is real and the stakes are high, and your entire life is falling apart, it's so much harder than it sounds. Sarah's strength didn't come from nowhere. It came from knowing her worth. It came from years of building herself up, of learning what she deserved, of refusing to settle. And that's work we all need to do, before we're ever tested. Because the time to decide your boundaries isn't when they're being crossed. It's before. when you're clear-headed and strong and sure of who you are. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Sarah's story isn't just about a wedding that never happened. It's about a woman who refused to lose herself in someone else's betrayal. It's about choosing dignity over desperation. It's about understanding that sometimes the greatest act of love isn't staying, it's leaving. And it's about knowing that you deserve someone who chooses you, not just once on a wedding day, but every single day for the rest of your lives. That's the real promise of marriage. Not the ceremony, not the dress, not the ring, but the daily choice to honor and respect and cherish the person you've committed to. Michael forgot that, but Sarah never will. Thank you for staying with us through this entire story. If Sarah's courage moved you, if her strength inspired you, if her story made you think differently about what you deserve in your relationships, please let us know in the comments. Share your thoughts. Share your own experiences. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's struggling with betrayal or heartbreak, or the difficult decision of when to walk away, share this video with them. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we're stronger than we think, that we can survive what feels unsurvivable, that choosing ourselves isn't selfish, it's necessary. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and want to hear more stories that will challenge you, move you, and make you think, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Until next time, remember, you deserve someone who chooses you, every single day, without hesitation, without betrayal, without question. Don't settle for anything less.